Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling something absolutely vital to, well, global health, but it's often invisible, isn't it? We're talking about the medical device sterilization market. Every single sterile instrument, every bandage relies on this complex industry. But here's the big question we're digging into. Are the traditional Western markets still dominating? Or is growth shifting, especially in this critical behind-the-scenes area? We're going to look at the data, see where patient safety is really accelerating. So our mission today is to take a deep dive into the global medical device sterilization market, pulling out the key stuff from a report by Cognitive Market Research. We won't just read numbers. We'll try to figure out what these trends actually mean for healthcare, everywhere. And the big picture numbers are, well, they're pretty striking. Back in 2021, this market was worth just over $10 billion. Fast forward to 2033, and the projection is nearly $25 billion. Yeah, that's more than doubling. It means a solid compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, of 7.9% year after year. It really highlights how important sterilization is becoming for safety and compliance globally.
Yeah, exactly. And it's more than just the money, right? The real story, I think, is this kind of global health paradox. We get more advanced medical tech, which is great, saves lives, but it also means we have this escalating, really complex need for absolutely perfect sterilization. So this growth reflects that race, if you will. You've got device advancements, more demand for healthcare globally, partly aging populations, partly better access, and crucially, stricter safety standards. So when we look at these numbers, what we're really seeing is how these fundamental things directly impact the safety, the effectiveness of the care you or your family might get.
That's a great way to put it. So if it's so vital and growing so fast, where's the action concentrated? Let's break down the regions. We can start with the established leaders and then maybe pivot to where the really explosive growth is happening. Okay, first up, North America. Definitely a major hub, leads the market currently. It was valued at, over $3 billion in 2021, and is projected to more than double, hitting over $7.7 billion by 2033. That's a steady growth of around 7.7% annually. Now, within that, the U.S. is the biggest chunk, naturally. But here's something interesting. Canada's growth rate is actually higher, almost 9% a year,
Right.
compared to about 7.5% for the U.S.
Yeah.
Mexico's showing solid growth, too, nearly 7%.
Yeah, that point about Canada is interesting. North America's lead, well, it comes from that advanced healthcare infrastructure, big R&D spending,
Right.
plus really strict regulations, which kind of sets the bar high for sterilization. Canada's faster growth, though, it could signal maybe more aggressive investment in their system recently, perhaps expanding tech.
And even more interesting, perhaps, is the rest of Europe category, those smaller countries combined. They actually have the highest AGR in Europe, nearly 9.6%.
Wow.
Way ahead of the UK. Spain, though, is on the lower end, just over 6.3% growth.
Right, and that variation tells a story, doesn't it? It reflects this complex mix of, national health policies, different population pressures, different spending priorities. The UK's faster growth might be tied to specific NHS initiatives, maybe a big push for modernization. Slower growth in Spain could reflect different economic factors or spending choices. And that surge in rest of Europe, that suggests a really widespread effort across many smaller nations to upgrade facilities, expand services, a broad modernization push. It shows healthcare demand isn't uniform, even within the EU bloc.
Definitely not uniform. Okay, now, this is where you said it gets really interesting. The Asia-Pacific region, APAC, it's not just growing. It sounds like it's one of the fastest accelerators globally.
Absolutely.
Started around $1.7 billion in 2021, but projected to more than double to over $4.6 billion by 2033. That's an impressive annual growth over 8.3%. Really dynamic. And within APAC, China's the biggest piece, but India really jumps out. Its market is forecast to nearly triple by 2033.
Triple, yeah. It's incredible.
With an annual growth rate rocketing up over 9.5%. Taiwan's also strong, over 9.1%, and Singapore's expected to double too.
Yeah, that APAC growth is tied to some really powerful drivers. You've got growing populations, sure, but also that rapidly expanding middle class, right? They're demanding and, frankly, getting better access to modern healthcare. Combine that with huge government investment in health infrastructure, it just creates this massive demand for sterile devices. And India, with that staggering growth, it really embodies a nation undergoing huge healthcare transformation. We're talking vast numbers of new hospitals, clinics, labs being built. Sterilization is just fundamental to all of that. It's a really stark contrast to the more sort of incremental growth in the West.
That's an amazing picture of India's transformation. Okay, let's shift focus again. South America, another region showing steady, impactful growth here. Around $1.28 billion back in 2021, projected to hit over $3 billion by 2033. That's maintaining a pretty respectable growth over 7.3% annually. Brazil's leading the pack there, set to more than double its market by 2033, growing over 7.4%. And Colombia looks strong too, growing at nearly 7.8% a year.
And that growth in South America is really significant because it points to broader improvements in healthcare access and quality. As countries like Brazil and Colombia invest more in upgrading and expanding their medical facilities, the need for properly sterilized equipment just naturally ramps up. So it's not just market value, it's about building that essential safety layer that makes all other medical advances actually work for patients. It suggests the continent is actively building out its medical capacity.
Right, building capacity. Okay, moving on to the Middle East. This region's showing some really strong emerging potential. Started over $770 million in 2021, but projected to more than double, hitting over $2 billion by 2033. That's an impressive annual growth of over 8.4%. And looking closer, Saudi Arabia is expanding robustly, also expected to more than double by 2033, growing at almost 8.8% a year. But the UAE actually has the highest growth in the region, nearing 8.9% annually. Their market's projected to nearly triple by 2033.
Yeah, that strong Middle East growth, it's pretty strategic, I'd say. See huge government investments in like state-of-the-art healthcare facilities. There's also a big focus on medical tourism in some places, plus broader economic diversification where healthcare is seen as key. So those high growth rates in Saudi Arabia and the UAE, they really highlight this push to become regional, maybe even global healthcare hubs. And of course, you absolutely need world-class sterilization for that to attract patients and build trust.
Makes sense. And finally, Africa, you flagged this one, not just fast-growing, but marking the highest growth rate globally.
That's right. The highest overall CGR.
A staggering 9.642% CAGR. It was just over $600 million in 2021, but projected to nearly triple to almost $1.75 billion by 2033. And within Africa, South Africa leads, and its individual growth rate is one of the highest globally, an incredible 10.289% annually.
Phenomenal rate.
Nigeria is also showing great momentum, over 9.3%.
Yeah, the significance of Africa's high CAGR, especially South Africa's, over 10%. It's huge. This isn't just numbers on a page. It suggests really substantial, sustained investment going into healthcare infrastructure, into services. It's about addressing critical needs, expanding access across the continent. It's a really powerful sign of broader development efforts because better healthcare is just fundamental to progress, right? It shows a real commitment to building more resilient health systems. And sterilization is absolutely foundational to making treatments safe and effective. It really speaks to a continent tackling its health challenges head on. So, wrapping this all up, what's the big takeaway? Our deep dive into this report really shows the medical device sterilization market isn't just growing, it's accelerating globally. And we see this fascinating contrast, don't we? The traditional players, North America, Europe, they still hold big market shares, reflecting their established systems. But the real dynamism, the highest rates of growth are coming from emerging economies. Africa, India, other parts of APAC are just surging ahead.
It does raise a really important point, I think. These numbers, they aren't just abstract figures. They really underline the crucial fundamental role sterilization plays in healthcare safety and in enabling medical advances everywhere. These global patterns show us how healthcare landscapes are evolving differently around the world. They highlight where investment's flowing, yes, but also where that basic need for medical safety is being met with, frankly, growing urgency and ambition. It really paints a picture of an interconnected global health system. And that brings us to a final thought, something for you, our listeners, to mull over. What does this rapid global expansion, especially in emerging regions, mean for the future? Think about healthcare innovation, access, affordability. How does this sterilization growth impact all that? Could it speed up the adoption of new medical technologies? And what challenges might pop up, things like regulation, standardization, as all these diverse markets grow and connect? We hope this deep dive gets you thinking about these foundational, often unseen industries that quietly shape so much of our world.